This is Ralph Brandt from the Fireside. I just did a video about crystal production in the 1950s and 60s in the Carlisle area. If you're interested in it, it will be on the website or on the YouTube site. I worked at McCoy, but I was in a division called the filter department. We were there in the same building at Chestnut and Watt Street in Mount Holly Springs, Pennsylvania. But we did something totally different. The crystal department was our primary supplier. They supplied us with crystals. These are quartz crystals that are usually used for frequency control. And I cover that in the other video. We built circuits that would allow one group of frequencies to pass through and would then exclude others. There were more than one type. Most of what we did was what was called a symmetrical bandpass. If it had a center frequency at 9 megahertz, the lower pass and the upper pass were the same distance apart, and the lower reject and upper rejects were at the same place. The filter was symmetrical. We also did some that were steep on one side and floated out on the other. And it could be high or low. It didn't matter. They each had a use in a circuit. They each did what was needed. Pass something and not let something else through. I worked there. I turned 16 a couple days before Christmas. And the day after Christmas, I get a call from Ed Boyce. Ed was the chief engineer of the filter department. And he said, "Ralph, do you want a job?" I just barely turned 16. I'm a high school junior. And I said, "Yeah, doing what?" He said, "Aligning and testing crystal filters." Okay. A couple hours later, no kidding, this is a Saturday, a couple of hours later, I'm sitting at a test station aligning and testing filters. And I did it for a little over 4 years. I financed a lot of my college with it. It was a lot of fun, a lot of tension at times. But what we did was we built the filters. A couple of the uses of them. The radios that guys on the flight decks of aircraft carriers, there was a little filter about 5/8 of an inch square with 4 crystals in it and a coil and a capacitor that kept them from hearing other channels because there were multiple radio channels going on at that time. You don't want the armor hearing the channel or having it break in on the channel that the fueling guy is working on or something like that. We built millions of those. Well, maybe not millions, but a lot of them. And it was only a little filter, I'm going to say less than 3/4 of an inch cube. But it kept everything except that one channel from coming through. There was also a crystal oscillator in there that took the frequency that the channel was, added to that, and got it to the filter frequency. And those varied depending on what channel the guy was on. We had another filter that was in a missile. This was a one-shot item. They put the filter in, they fired the missile, and it helped the guidance system figure out where the enemy was. This was air-to-air missiles. Have no idea how it worked, but apparently that filter kept things out that the radar set was collecting that the rest of the circuitry didn't want. We built one for amateur radio. We actually built two for amateur radio for single sideband. One of them had two sides that were straight. You could flip a crystal one way and get double lower sideband, and you could flip the crystal on the other side and get upper sideband. When you're passing the upper sideband, the lower sideband is going down at a 1,000,000 to 1 ratio. When you're passing the lower sideband, the upper is going down at about 1,000,000 to 1 ratio. We did another one for E.F. Johnson. I remember it was for them. That was quite interesting because it only had a steep side on one side. They played a game to go between upper and lower sideband. It was an interesting game. It's called heterodyning, and maybe I'll do something on that someday. That's an interesting subject. If you understand chords in music, you understand heterodyning, or at least you can understand it easily. We built some on the dew line. Actually, I did a lot of the dew line stuff. Almost every, no, not almost, every space flight that flew had almost something on ours on it. Mercury, Gemini, a lot of the unmanned flights. I had stuff on both Mercury and Gemini. I was out before Apollo, so I was not there for Apollo. In addition to the stuff that flew, most of the ground station receivers, both digital and analog, had filters in them that we built to keep the frequencies stable. They were just all over the place. And it was fun. It was an interesting thing. It's a basic circuit. If you know what a Wheatstone's bridge looks like, it looks like 4 crystals in a Wheatstone bridge with a coil across the center. That's a basic 4-pole thing. If you need more selectivity, where you go down faster and stay down harder, you put 2 of these in series. And we'd only get a couple of dB of loss for the good signal. There was an alternative to these. They were called mechanical filters. Now, we did things from about 1 megahertz up to, I know we did some 27s. Okay. Most of the mechanical filters, which were a group of ceramic discs with a wire across them, they would have 10 dB of loss, which was bad. They were also usually down around 455 kilohertz. We weren't really a competitor. We had 2 niches. I mean, the alternative is if you got an IF at 10.7 megahertz and you want to use a 455 kilohertz filter, you've got to heterodyne it down, and then whatever you need to do with it after that to get it where it will work. Our filters were more flexible, but theirs had a lot of good use. As a matter of fact, my $800 Yaesu ham radio has a mechanical filter in it. Actually, it's got 3. So it's not that it's a bad thing. They were just 2 products that had their own niche. For us to do 455 kilohertz would have been tough. We could have done it, but it would have made the blanks, the crystal blanks would have been massively thick. And we did very little crystal work at that. We did have a low frequency section later on that did that type of work. We started out on Chestnut and Watts Street, and we outgrew Chestnut and Watts. We bought an old storefront. Arnold's Grocery was, before Arnold moved down the street. The floor was rotten. It was rat infested, but it was home. One of the guys walked through the back one day, through the back to the coffee area, and stepped through the floor. We brought in 2 big sheets of plywood, put over that area, and we kept working. We had a filter that was around 11 megahertz that we built, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of. It went in the Army backpack radio that was being built in the early 60s. If you've seen any of the Vietnam War films with the guy with the backpack radio, that had an 11 megahertz filter in it. That thing had awesome shock and vibration requirements. The testing for that was to put a filter in a metal block, steel block, the size of that backpack radio, with a piece of aluminum chassis across it, bolt it in, drop it from 5 feet onto a 3/4 inch pine board on every face, every corner, and every point, and it still had to work. We used a loading dock for the old store, loading dock, and a rope on the thing so we would drop it, pull it back up. I was kind of a utility person. I did everything. I actually knew how to do the design work and did a lot of the designs. We just outgrew what was going on. I was a math major at Shippensburg at the time, and hence knew how to do things. At that time, we didn't have have electronic calculators. We had the old mechanical calculator that would actually do add, subtract, multiply, and divide. They were awesome. They would sit there, though, when you put a division in, and clunk and clunk and clunk to do it, because they were doing division by repetitive subtraction, and it was fun. I actually decoded the stuff from the German Herzog documents and did one band reject filter. That was one that you have everything goes through, and this one frequency, one small frequency set, doesn't go through. And when I say doesn't go through, you have to be careful with the word doesn't go through. Something always got through if you could measure it. But it may be 1,000,000 to 1, which is 60 dB, or it may be 10 million to 1, which is 70 dB. Okay, but no matter what, something always got through. And we talk about band reject. It was never reject. It was band attenuated. And it was a fun time. It was a time of learning how to deal with people, learning how to make things work, sometimes doing things that weren't my job. I ran the floor scrubber a few times. The guy who designs crystal filters, we need the floor scrubbed tonight because we've got visitors coming in. I got the floor scrubber out. We had a coil winder. We had a person who wound coils. Freddie got behind on winding coils. We need these many coils of this kind wound. Okay. But I was getting paid for it. I was paying for my college. And I knew where I was going. I was either going to be there as an engineer, or then I found out about computers, and that ended that. And I turned my back on it, and that ended it. But I'll tell you this, electronics, I joked that computers was my wife, electronics was my mistress. I never gave it up. I still piddled with it. I dropped my ham license in 64 because I couldn't get the requirements to renew. 2008, I got the bug again. And in 2008, by the way, ham radio was what got me into it because that's how Ed Boyce got to know me. But 2008, I decided one night I'm going to get my ham radio ticket back. Thursday night. Tuesday night, I went to Reisterstown, Maryland, passed the Tech and the General, the two lower caste licenses. 3 months later, I passed the Amateur Extra, which is the highest class. And I've had a good life working with both. The background in this, what else has it done? Well, I've installed a satellite dish. I'm talking a big one, the 15-footer, not the 10. I've done church sound, church video production. I'm still doing it. At 82 years old, I'm still doing it. And I'm having a ball. And it shows you that life can be good. Sometimes there's a few lemons along the way, but many of those lemons turn out to be lemonade if you just left them. God bless all of you, and maybe we'll see you at the fireside again.